Test. Test. All right, we're going to call to order the City Council meeting for Monday, April 18th, 2022. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Going forward from last month, we were going to have a preschool or elementary school student join us and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We did have one signed up, or actually two signed up for today. However, their schedules were not allowing them to make it for reasons undisclosed for tonight's meeting. Hoping to reschedule both those young kids for another meeting in the future. We do have one scheduled for next month, but if anyone else would like to get their name in that hat, please feel free to contact Lisa Keene at the city manager's office and we'll get you on that schedule. Roll call. Jamie.
Mark Bittner.
Here.
Jeff Dahlke.
Here.
Tracy Coach. Here. Bill LeClaire.
Here.
Darla LeClaire.
Here.
Bonnie Shimulinis.
Here.
Larry Thomas.
Here.
Adam Husky.
Here.
And Jay Remaker is absent.
All right, number 4 is a consideration of any council member requesting to participate in this meeting from a remote location. Jay did not indicate that he wanted to do so, so we will skip over 4 and go to number 5. Number 5 is a public hearing. Under A, the public hearing on a resolution to levy special assessments upon the properties fronting 17th Street from East Park Street to Jefferson Street and 17th Street from East Street to Zlatnik Drive. The recommended action is a motion to waive reading and adopt the resolution. We will go to Greg before we open up the public hearing.
Yes, there was notice provided as required under the statute to the owners of properties along this section of 17th Street that's to be reconstructed. There was an information meeting for the neighborhood held last week, Thursday, here in Chambers. The related resolution that council is asked to act upon following public hearing tonight appears at, whoops, I have the wrong one. Is it in the packet?
Yep, page 1.
Thank you. It is page 1. I shouldn't have mentioned that. I just messed it up. Thanks, Mr. President. That's all I have.
All right, so we're going to open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to talk to the council on this item, please step up to the podium. My right, your left, state your name and address for the record. We'll have 3 calls. Opening up call 1. Seeing none, we will close call 1 and open call 2. Closing call 2, opening up the 3rd and final call. Okay, closing call number 3. Looking for a motion to waive reading and adopt the resolution. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Larry. Any council discussion? Again, page 1 in your packet if you have any questions. Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Jamie.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
Jeff Dahlke.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Darla LeClaire.
Aye.
Bill LeClaire.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulinis.
Aye.
Larry Thomas.
Aye.
Adam Husky.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you for that. Going to number 6, input from the public. Anyone wishing to address the council on a topic on this agenda or a topic for another future agenda, please step up to the podium, my right, your left, state your name and address for the record. All right, see none. Moving on to number 7, which is council communications, letters and other communications from citizens. Does any council member have anything they'd like to share? Jeff.
Yeah, I got several of them. One of them was the speed on Adams Street. Must be south of 27th Street because that's where most of the kids are. That speed is pretty excessive there. They were concerned about that because they had 3 young children and the speed does get up there. And also, well, this one's coming from me, but the pothole on Adams Street is getting kind of bad where they did the water work. And you might want to fill back in.
Okay, feel free to call anytime on those, especially when it's from you, council member, or anybody in the community.
And then the third one was there was trash in Monroe for 26 days, broken, their bags of trash, broken cabinets, a couch, and they wanted to know who should be following up on this and why wasn't the ordinance followed?
I know that was followed up on, maybe not as timely as it should have been, through one of our community service officers. So, yeah, that concern has been registered.
Okay, yeah, they were just concerned with the appearance, people coming in and out of the city on that
It
street.
shouldn't sit there that long.
I think I got the same complaint, and I think Vicky said that there were garbage stickers on there and out for trash the next day, so that should be gone.
Yeah, it had been there for quite a while by the
Right,
time
it
the
has.
garbage stickers
Yes.
appeared, but yeah,
Right.
it's a legitimate complaint, certainly.
And then there was another one, nobody was at Walsh Field to open up the restrooms when there was a ball game. And there were a couple people concerned about that. And they wanted to know why it wasn't opened.
All I can say, as I told the gentleman that night, who's probably the gentleman you heard from, it looks like a little communication breakdown, maybe between the school and our rec department. Those have been turned on now, so they've been available for any, I don't know if they've been able to hold any subsequent games, but that was addressed the very next day, last week.
And the fifth one was, there's trouble on YouTube on the last regular scheduled meeting. It wasn't,
YouTube or on cable?
it was one or the other. I thought they said YouTube, but it could have been cable.
Okay, I know cable didn't go out, and Rick, are we still not out as far? We've confirmed we're sending signal out, but there's some issue at. This is, yeah, we didn't get a final answer back from Spectrum, but this will be the third regular meeting where we've not gone out on cable. I suspect that's what you were hearing on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the sixth one was, a couple of people had actually talked to me. They were elderly people and they said that they would like to see the city manager report at the end of the meetings. And they wanted
Council
to know if
wishes
that was
to
a
so
possibility.
direct, I'd be happy to move it wherever you want it. Yep.
Okay.
I know I'm keeping them up late.
Well, that's what they said. They get tired and they want to watch the whole meeting, and it'd be nice if they get 20 minutes earlier.
Most exciting part is the city managers meeting. I look forward to it.
It must make for a pretty boring meeting, but yes. So again, wherever the council wants that report.
Thank you, Jeff.
I thought we put things at the end of the agenda to hide them, but that was another
Oh,
member of the
boy.
public that spoke to that, I guess.
Here come the emails. Bonnie.
Okay, this is something kind of secondhand and I haven't looked into it yet because I just heard about it over the weekend. When you're gonna do something and you need to tell people 200 feet within whatever the project is, even if they're not in the city of Two Rivers, do you send them notice?
I do not believe that has been the case. It's been 200,
Um,
city property owners within 200 feet.
or- Well,
It's-
there's a concern
Yep,
with the
I think
new,
I'm quite
you
aware of
know
the
about
concern.
it?
Yep.
Okay, well,
I don't know
It-
if the property owner that I spoke to is within 200 feet, if it had gone to the town, but he might have heard it from a neighbor then.
well, no, that is what probably happened, but the thing is, he's been there first, and it doesn't matter. Okay, so
We're looking,
nobody
if
knows
we're
what we're
talking
talking
the
about.
same thing I think we are.
The windmill, the
It's a
wind,
matter that's being looked into.
and he has that airstrip, and he's concerned that the wind, whatever turbine, out by the industrial park, is going to affect his ability to use his device, whatever that is, that thing that flies in the air.
That concern got communicated to us last week. I first heard about it on Thursday, I believe. We will be back in touch with that individual. I can tell you, we did check and no, notice was not sent to the town property owners within 200 feet. As to what takes precedence in terms of the land uses, I don't think we have a definitive answer tonight.
Well, and I wasn't really bringing it up for that. I just thought if there could be something possible that you could either work out or else prove that it probably won't affect him. You know what I mean? Just something that, because you don't want to really ignore them, I wouldn't think.
No, we don't want to ignore them, nor do we. I'm not in a position to say whether one use trumps the other. Our industrial park and the needs of companies moving pretty important from the city's perspective. But as far as it being news to that gentleman that this development was happening, I think going forward, we could better address doing the 200-foot notice, which again, I don't think his property is within 200 feet of the site, but
It might not be, but
oh, and thank you, Bunny. I guess all I'm going to say at this point is we are very mindful of that concern, and we don't have a final answer as to what takes priority, if one does, or if they can coexist.
Do we have a obligation to do that if it's in the town of Two Rivers anyway?
I think our notification to property owners within 200 feet is simply a local ordinance requirement.
Right.
I think that's true too. I don't think it's in the statute. Certain municipalities do make that a condition of, they'll make that notice doing some permit.
We'll let Jack look at that. Anybody else? Bill?
Argument, but
Elizabeth may be able to speak to that some. It's something we've been researching just within the last week. And I'm hesitant because until we have a final answer, it's kind of awkward on the fly to present anything as definitive, but
Well, we do know that the airstrip has been there. However, the FAA rules they say that if it's 200 feet or less, then the wind, correct, for the wind tower, he is not an obstruction in the airspace, and therefore the wind tower can go up. So in terms of the airstrip, it's not a certified airport. Therefore, there's not any special actions that need to take place, even though it is a private airstrip. So the small wind towers can go up. They are under 200 feet. So there is no height restriction or obstruction for the height of that small wind, the two small wind energy systems. So his was going to be 170 feet, which is the maximum height in our industrial park. So he was complying with that. And he's also under the FAA height, maximum height, for which he would have to do anything in terms of the FAA airspace obstruction.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a maximum height on what that one is going to be? They may be under the impression that it's going to be as tall as one of the great big ones that are out in the country.
I spoke with this individual and
Oh, okay.
I told him it was going to be 170. And I don't know if that made him feel any better. I still think he's, concerned, but that's what we told him. And he's also approached the property owner of the small wind towers. So he's approached many folks with his concerns, but again, under FAA regulations, he is not violating airspace obstructions or restrictions because he's under 200 feet.
Thank you. Anybody else?
we will be following up with the gentleman though, be assured. He stopped in out of the blue last Thursday and it was not a point where we could meet on Thursday or Friday. I did tell him we'd follow up this week.
Okay. Anybody else, council communications? All right, seeing none, we will move on to council reports from boards, commissions, and committees. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share from one of those that they represent? All right, nothing there. Good deal. On to number 9, city manager's report. Greg.
We'll keep it moving tonight. City manager's report for tonight. Just FYI, because people might be wondering what's the story with the proposed development at 3000 Forest Avenue. Council had previously endorsed the structure for funding assistance from our TID number 15. I just wanted to report tonight, we are awaiting final word from the developer on 2 matters that require resolution. One a private matter relative to the site, the other some further discussion with their bank as far as what we are requiring, we the city, in the development agreement as far as a mortgage position on the property to help assure payment of the necessary taxes or shortfall payments to pay off the debt service on the borrowing that's part of the project. So a couple things there that require some more work. I'm hopeful we can have that on the May 2 agenda for council action, not only on a development agreement, but on the related city borrowing that has previously been in front of the council, at least as far as the fundamentals of this development arrangement. I realize we also will have 3 new council members joining us by the time of the next meeting, so we will provide some additional background information to those folks. But the developer is still very interested in seeing that happen. Again, that's 45 units of market rate apartment housing on the former Hanson the Florist. Today is Line Worker Appreciation Day across the country. And likewise, we want to make sure to say a big thank you to the outstanding work done by our Two Rivers Electric Utility line workers. So the all guys right now, but we're going to call them line workers just the same, who keep the lights on for our city. And as we know, it isn't always easy. That was the view on Adams Street about 4 summers ago when we had a big blow and the crews worked over 24 hours straight restoring service. And the other shot there, I think, is from May, a couple of years ago when a spring storm took out power to a lot of the north side. So we salute our line workers. We're very grateful to have a utility that's under local control with crews that are right in our backyards, sometimes literally, unless the wires are out on the street. So thank you, line workers. Hey, Canine Officer Zante plush toys are available. The photo doesn't do it justice. They are awesome. There we go. And they are available for purchase at the Two Rivers Police Department for $20 each. All proceeds benefit the department canine program. They're amazing. They've got the Zante's name embroidered on the back, the little TRPD badge. Very nice. Get them for the kids, the grandkids, your spouse. Get one for yourself. Okay. Shout out to the Department of Public Works. It may not be the most sexy municipal job in the world, but crack sealing on our concrete streets is vitally important when you're in a state like Wisconsin, where the climate puts our streets through a lot of freeze-thaw cycles each winter. You see the consequences in communities that don't take care of their crack sealing program. So kudos, Public Works. They haven't had the greatest weather to be tackling it yet this so-called spring, but there they are at work last week on Adams Street. Also, not normal duty, but there they are. Kind of looks like they're in the Sahara Desert, but actually that's the median on Memorial Drive, where the low Lake Michigan levels have allowed a lot of wind-blown sand to interrupt. So last week when things dried out, they were blowing the sand out of there. We're hoping for some longer-term fixes to that problem, which just doesn't just impact those landscaped areas, but the traffic lanes on the drive, the bike trail, and even as over into Lakeshore Park, the library, and Bank First National's property. Also, talk about doing your shopping early. We took delivery last week of actually this winter's official salt shipment of 500 tons. So I hope they aren't spreading any more of it from here on out, but the salt sheds right now are full as we look ahead to next winter. Ordering deadline will be coming up soon for next winter's order of salt, and we're real, I don't know if we've seen it yet, Jim, but we're real curious to see where the price on road salt goes. Yep. So we'll keep you abreast of what's happening there. In the way of staffing updates, just to repeat a few things, our new senior center supervisor, Heather Eilenfeld, starts, 4:45 next Monday, April 25th. It ain't even leap year, and we've got 45 days. Next Monday, the 25th. In the area of water operator, where we've recently filled 2 vacancies, Dalton Schmidt, who's a transfer from Public Works, an outstanding employee there. We know will do a good job over at the water plant as well. He's on his own pursued his initial certifications as a plant operator, started today. And new hire, Ross, help me out on this, Tim Elklepp, also started today, and he's got a number of years of experience in water operations. I was doing reference checks today on our top candidate for Parks and Rec Director. We hope to, if all goes well, extend an offer tomorrow and have that person on board by about the 1st of June. We are currently in recruitment mode for Public Works maintenance worker. There's the ad from Facebook. You can go out there and click on the post to get more information on the position. That's the position that Dalton Schmidt vacated down at Public Works. And then we also have a vacancy that recently arose due to resignation in the part-time position over at the senior center of volunteer and nutrition coordinator. One or two positions there? One. And this person lines up the Meals on Wheels volunteers, helps with reporting on the nutrition program as well. So some both full-time career opportunities and part-time job opportunities with the city. Skip that one. By the way of update on Central Park West 365, this donation or pledge came in about 3 weeks ago, but we hadn't publicly acknowledged another major corporate donation, Fox Communities Credit Union. They're donating $25,000 to the Central Park West project for what we were calling the picnic island, the area around the Christmas trees at the south end of the park, where there will be traditional trestle type picnic tables placed. So we have to come up with a name for that area so we could tie their donation to something. That worked out pretty well for all concerned. The committee, the design committee chair and the city clerk and my assistant Lisa and myself went over to the Fox Valley Friday afternoon for another corporate pitch on a potential major donation for the project. So we'll hopefully have some good news on that. And we are a bit over, and I didn't check with Jamie today, but we're over $510,000, probably still in that neighborhood. Okay, 1,200 more, we'll take it. So we're approaching 2/3 of the local fundraising goal of 800,000. Upcoming events, it got rescheduled, but the upcoming is the Marketing 345 workshop being organized by Main Street and TRBA, and I'm looking wildly for the date up there. Wednesday, April 20th, so this week, Wednesday. Still opportunity to get registered for that, though. It's an online webinar. Over at the Community House in the Rochelo Gym, the rec department on Wednesday will be presenting Goonies, the movie, and you can dress in your favorite character of that 80s hit, and $2 in advance, $3 at the door. Doors open 5:45. Movie starts at 6:30. So good things coming out of the rec department still. Leicester Public Library spring used book sale. Jeff, is this the first book sale in a while now?
It is.
Yeah, first post-COVID book sale. So they probably got a lot of really great books and CDs and DVDs. That is Thursday of this week, April 21 through Saturday the 23rd. Heartorama rolls back into town for a deferred 50th anniversary show. They've had to skip a couple years due to COVID, but that is April 28th to the 30th. And again, Thursday, May 5th through Saturday, May 7th over at the Community House. Heartorama in its previous 49 years has raised about $2.5 million for the Heart Association. Great group of people. They work really hard on that event. We also want to extend congratulations to Emily Ristican. Most of you probably saw the media releases and social media posts last week. She has been named by Insight Publications as one of 8 women of influence in Wisconsin's New North region. Of course, Emily's the young homegrown entrepreneur here who has Screamin' Conuts and soon will be opening the High Lift Coffee Shop right here in Two Rivers. And we hope to invite Emily to a future council meeting so council can personally extend congratulations. Amazing job, well done. Legislative intergovernmental update. We talked about this one once before. The city did a pre-app and was invited then to do a full application for a Save Our Great Lakes grant to address the city-owned roughly 31 acres of property along Memorial Drive from the Chamber in Manitowoc up to the area near Madison Street. That is a grant request for $230,000 to help with plantings for shoreline stabilization, some pollinator-friendly plantings, invasive species abatement and control, green stormwater infrastructure, and environmental restoration. This is partnering with Woodland Dunes and with Friends of Mariners Trail. There is no local hard match requirement on the grant. It would be volunteer labor and in-kind services. That application was submitted through our consultant and our community development office last week, Friday, which in my book is pretty good because the deadline was today. It actually got fully submitted last week, Friday, and we'll await a decision on that. Also, council knows this, but I wanted to share it with the community. The WEDC Idle Sites Grant Program, which is meant to help with the redevelopment of large, long vacant manufacturing facilities, is something the city applied for. It was part of our purchase agreement with Art Dumke and his company Trivers LLC that now owns the former Paragon property. City agreed it would make application for this funding to assist with what he's estimating at about a $5 million renovation job. Council did meet last Thursday, you all know that, to approve a development agreement with Trivers LLC, which is required by the state grant program. That's because the city acts as a pass-through entity. City applies for the funding, gets the funding, hands it over to the developer with certain conditions that are laid out in the development agreement. That agreement was signed by the city clerk and myself, as well as Mr. Dumke, on the morning of the 15th, and was forwarded on to the WEDC, who wanted it by noon on Friday. And we expect a decision on that funding application by the end of this month. So hopefully it'll be $250,000 to help Mr. Dumke continue to rehabilitate that building and see it return to productive use. That is my report for the evening.
All right, thank you so much. On to number 10, which is the consent agenda. Under A, we have a presentation of minutes for the city council meeting April 4th, 2022. The recommended action is a motion to waive reading and adopt the minutes. Under B, minutes of meetings, we have 7. The recommended action is a motion to receive and file. Under C, department reports for March 2022, there are 11 of those. The recommended action is a motion to receive and file. Under D, which is applications and petitions, we have an application for a temporary Class B retailer's license for the period of May 20th, 2022 to May 22nd, 2022 for the Softball Central Wisconsin for the 2022 Bash of the Beach Girls Fast Pitch Tournament at 1200 35th Street in Two Rivers. The recommended action here is a motion to approve the application and authorize issuance of the license. And under E, we have a summary of verified bills for the month of March 2022 for $4,141,687.31. The recommended action is a motion to receive and file. The recommended action for the consent agenda is a motion to approve the consent agenda with the various actions recommended. Looking for a motion on this.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Darla. Second by Jeff. Any discussion?
I have a correction.
Go ahead.
In the Board of Canvassers, it says Brian Kohlmeyer, the Assistant Police Chief, but I'm pretty sure he's the Police Chief. Even the dog, I just have to say this because the audience wouldn't have seen it. When they presented the dog and the chief came up to give him his badge, he waggled his tail more than usual. So even he recognizes that.
Dog biscuits in his pocket. It's a dog biscuits in his pocket.
Oh, Lord. Okay, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you very much. Going to 11, which is the city council formal items. Under A, we have a resolution adopting amendment number 3 to tax incremental District 7, providing for investment in street and utility infrastructure within 1/2 mile of district boundaries. The recommended action is a motion to waive reading and adopt the resolution. You can go to page 94 in your packet. Otherwise, Greg, introduction, please.
Yeah. Tax incremental district number 7, or the so-called old hospital TIF, has been around for a while, 2001. And most of the items in the original plan have been successfully completed. Assistance to Rice Healthcare, who purchased and renovated the old parts of the old hospital into Northland Lodge Assisted Living, rebuilding the boulevard section of 25th Street from Garfield out to Lincoln, some improvements to city radio infrastructure that's still on a tower up in what was the municipal hospital complex. The TIF was amended on a prior occasion to help pay for some infrastructure work within 1/2 mile of its boundaries, because Wisconsin TIF law allows for spending money up to half mile outside of the district boundaries if authorized in the project plan. That earlier amendment was to pay for the water and sewer infrastructure, the debt service payments on the water and sewer infrastructure related to the Lincoln Avenue reconstruction a few years back. This amendment, which is probably going to be the last project plan amendment we see in this TIF district, which expires or comes to an end in 2028, is to add some additional work within a half mile of those boundaries. About $600,000 in total appears to be feasible. And this amendment, the actual detail plan, which you find at page 96 in your packet, on page 105, identifies the projects that we would propose to be able to apply TID 7 funds toward. And that would include this year's reconstruction of 17th Street, a possible project next year with reconstruction of Lincoln Street over on the east side, and this year's planned resurfacing, just resurfacing on Zlatnik Drive. Also in there is provision possibly for $25,000 in facade improvements if there are applications for facade work under the city program that was recently announced that fall within that half mile radius, and up to $10,000 for administrative and legal costs. You can see from that summary, which is actually up to $3 million in projects, $600,000 is not going to cover it all, but we expect most of it would get applied to some of the street projects. This spending would have to occur by August 23rd of next year, which is the expenditure deadline 5 years prior to the end of the district's existence. So there's a window here to use some available revenues for this district consistent with what TIF law allows if this amendment is approved. And it's coming to you tonight on recommendation of the city's Plan Commission following a public hearing they held last Monday night, and has had preliminary review by the Joint Review Board made up of the various taxing entities, city, school district, LTC, the county, plus a citizen member. If council approves this tonight, the final step in the approval would be for it to go back in front of the Joint Review Board. They're set to meet tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So that's the nature of what's in front of you. And I got the right page this time. The resolution itself appears at page 94 of your packet.
All right, any, looking for a motion, actually.
A motion.
Larry, second?
A second.
Tracy, thank you. Any council discussion?
I just want to make a comment. This is an example of $600,000. It's not the taxpayers' property tax money we're using to help the infrastructure of the city. This is a successfully managed TIF that covered a development project, and we have some residue cash left over that we can use to our advantage as a city. So it's a positive step forward, and I'm pleased to see this.
Thank you. You know, I think it is, if approved and if we proceed this way, it's very prudent use of monies. We're still trying to figure out with monies from the some of the COVID relief American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, that are going for lead lateral replacement. Some of the ARPA money that's coming down, we believe, for street reconstruction. This is one piece in that puzzle to try to make maximum use of what's available to us. Because we, like any older community, we've got catching up to do on infrastructure. So this helps. Certainly encourage your approval.
All right, anybody else? All right, seeing none, roll call vote. Jamie?
Jeff Dahlke.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulunis.
Aye.
Larry Thomas.
Aye.
Adam Mohusky.
Aye.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. On to B, which is an application for a beer garden permit for the period of upon closing of the sale of the property until June 30th, 2022 for Submariners Pub LLC located at 4220 Memorial Drive, doing business as Submariners Pub, Jeffrey Tess agent, currently issued to the Sandpiper Bar and Grill Incorporated with request for waiver to minimum distance requirement from a residential structure. The recommended action here is a motion to approve the beer garden permit and authorize the city clerk to issue the license for Submariners Pub LLC with a waiver to the minimum distance requirement from a residential structure. Again, we got page 127 in our packet, and then we will defer to, I believe, Greg.
I'll speak to this briefly. The nature of the waiver here is that there is typically beer gardens aren't supposed to be within 50 feet of a property that's zoned residential or used for residential purposes. However, there is the ability for the owner of such an adjoining property to waive that restriction. And in this particular case, at this point in time, the owners of 117 Jesse Street are the current owners of the business in question. And they've been in touch with the police chief and have indicated their acknowledgement of this and agreement with the waiver. As Council President Wahusky stated, somewhat varying from the language on the agenda, this would be conditioned and effective upon the date of the pending sale of the property, which hasn't happened yet. So just to highlight recommended staff and council.
Okay, looking for a motion on this.
Motion.
Thank you, Tracy. Do I have a second? Thank you, Larry. Any discussion? Go ahead, Darla.
So if they sell that parcel, if they sell that building, then this is null and void?
No, I think this takes effect once it's sold.
Oh,
It's not sold yet. It might be under contract, possibly, because we've had another one, I think.
And I don't know, I gather the Canellis are going to probably keep living next door. Do you know, Chief?
So my understanding, I think, is the property's sold, just whether or not the bartenders licensing and all that is transferred is a whole nother matter. The property next door, the 117 Jesse, that's owned by the former owners of Sandpiper. And at this point, what we were told is that the new owners, the Cornellis, intend to maybe at some time buy that property. But that does raise a question as to what happens in the future if the owners of Submariners Pub would end up selling that property, or someone else just moves in that's not connected to the tavern, whatever it is at the time, whether or not, there would be a concern about that beer garden being too close to that property. My initial take on that is that, and of course, we can't predict the future and what the circumstances exactly will be, but my thought is that if someone's buying that property sometime in the future, they should be going into that with eyes wide open and fully knowing that there is a beer garden within literally 4 feet of their property. And so my thought on that would be, it would be a grandfathered situation like we do have at least one other location here in Two Rivers.
I would agree with that.
Thank you.
Anybody else on council discussion?
Certainly operative for tonight. We might want to look at the ordinance as to whether there would be truly a grandfathering and on future
There's nothing in
renewals.
the ordinance that relates to grandfathering.
Are we changing the size of the beer garden now? Are we
No.
increasing it? It's the same beer.
Same beer garden.
Bonnie, did you have your hand up?
I did, but it was the same question. I
question.
was wondering about the future.
Yeah.
I
We have
don't
one
think
other establishment in town that is literally right up on top of a residential building. And that's just been approved year after year as it was an existing usage.
I guess I would just add, I'm trying to read the city attorney's nonverbal feedback. We have 1 or 2 beer gardens that may predate the ordinance. I don't know that we can sit here tonight and assure that if the bar and the residents in question at a point in the future are under separate ownerships, that the waiver would grandfather. If that's the intent, we might want to look at the ordinance on that.
I think so. It's, grandfathering is something that the law implies, certainly with respect to use restrictions. That's why we have non-conforming uses. adopted zoning ordinance would not apply to an existing use. Because a property is already in a particular use, so that's why we have not. Grandfathering, I don't think is automatic in a situation like that.
A license as opposed to zoning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would be clear that I did not state that we would automatically do it, that there's a consideration, obviously, that would take place when and if that circumstance existed.
I just didn't want anyone to leave here tonight thinking there was the assurance that circumstance arose.
I think we should put that on a future agenda, because I think it's only fair if we are gonna tell him to go ahead and do this, and maybe he sticks money into reinventing the wheel over there in his beer garden, and then decides to sell the property behind him, and then he kind of gets coming back the next year, and we tell him no.
This waiver is specific to this application at this point in time for a license that expires next June 30th. Again, my intent isn't to wave a red flag. I just don't want anybody to get a nasty, unexpected surprise.
Is
Down
that
the
something we
line.
can come back with?
Absolutely.
Okay. And let council vote on it and see where it goes.
Yeah, I just think that, whatever, and that'll be part of the discussion, whatever the situation might be. I mean, it needs to be, I guess, flexible enough that the council would have discretion, to do it or not do it. And the ordinance does relate to that. And actually it's stated in the memo that I provided that, upon appeal to the city council. Now, in this case, they didn't appeal because we want trying to be reasonable and get ahead of it. But upon appeal to the city council, a full or partial waiver of the distance requirements in this provision may be granted. So there is a mechanism there to do that at any time, so.
I think that'd be good to get that back here before us.
Yeah, we'll try to do that timely maybe we could do that even for the work session next week. No promise, but it sounds like a pretty simple concept to address.
Yeah, because not only them, it may help someone in the future too, and kind of clean up some of that language maybe. Okay, thank you very much. Anything else on this one? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, going on to 12, Public Works Committee recommendations from April 6, 2022. On to A, which is a proposed speed limit, traffic calming measures, and on-street parking for West Park Street following completion of Central Park West 365 project. The recommended action is a motion to approve the recommendations of the Public Works Committee, which can be found on page 131 in your packet, and we will go to Greg.
Yes, and I'll defer on some of this to the Public Works Committee members on council or to Mr. McDonald. Council at its last regular meeting approved matters pertaining to a mutual agreement about parking areas, off-street parking areas owned by the city and the developers, owners of Cool City Brewing Company. There were also requests that related to the public streets adjacent to that planned development, which are appropriately addressed separate from what you did 2 weeks ago. The first of these, it's timely that it be acted on anyway, because assuming Central Park West reconstruction under the 365 project happens, there are some issues we had discussed at council when council approved the concept plan for that park design, that if indeed it is built as per the concept, need formal council action. So the first recommendation relates to the speed limit, which is proposed, again, if the park is reconstructed and West Park Street is made one-way northbound, which I guess would be part of the recommendation as well, that the street be one-way northbound with a 15 mile per hour speed limit posted, that as a traffic calming measure and for pedestrian safety, a speed table, again, for reference, like we have at Neshota Beach near the concessions, where it's not a speed bump, but it's up, over for a distance, and then back down. A speed table be located at the location shown on the map on page 133 of the packet, excuse me. That speed table would coincide with the proposed pedestrian crossing from the park to the community center. And that the proposed diagonal parking spaces in the northerly portion of West Park Street, if it is reconstructed in the manner shown, be diagonal spaces with a 2-hour limit, and that 3 of them be designated as handicap spaces. The 2 northernmost spaces, which was what originally went to the committee. I think at the committee it was agreed that there should be one at the south end as well. So the southerly one, that would leave, as I understand it, room for 7 regular non-handicap spaces in between. So down from 11 spaces shown in the original concept plan to 10, that being 3 handicap only spaces plus 7 regular spaces. Darrell, I don't know if I missed anything.
There is room on the picture for 11 if you count them.
Right, but the thing is with the added dimensional requirements, I believe, for the handicap spaces, it gets you down to 10.
Okay, so by adding that extra handicap space is gonna limit or take away from another regular parking spot. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think on the original plan, any were identified as handicap spaces per se.
Okay.
And assess.
You want to help us on that? So the thought was at least to try to make the southern one van accessible, the one that's nearest the public restrooms and other amenities.
Yeah, van accessible space will take up basically a space and a half in width. So you put the other one next to it and you're missing one at least.
Okay. Makes sense.
Stay handy for the next part of this, Jim, if you would.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion on this. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Larry? So Darla, Larry. Any council discussion? Bonnie?
Well, there's a lot of stuff in here and I'm not against everything, but 3 handicap spaces seems like a lot. And I'm not sure about the 2-hour parking. I'm not, I'm just gonna vote no on this, or else send it back to committee. But
I'd like to say something about that. We have an aging population, and we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to enjoy Cool City Brewing and or the park. And we've went back and forth on this. We looked at different configurations of the street, and this was a very good, after a lot of discussion and debate, this was a very good meeting of the minds. And what this is all about is 15 miles an hour speed limit. We want to make sure that it is going to be safe for people who are crossing, just like they do right now when they park on the east side of that street to cross over to the community house. I think it's very, very fair.
that's fine. But I'm not against everything in it. The way the street is configured. You know, the thing is, a lot of this parking was taken away and now you're trying to put some of it back and even more of it is being taken away. We don't even have that many handicap spaces around the community house or by the senior center. No, I'm just gonna vote no.
Jeff?
Would it make more sense? There's gonna be 4 total, right? 3 north, 1 south?
Nope, 3 total.
Was 2 north, 1 south.
Okay. I think it'd make more sense to have 2 by the restrooms rather than up top.
We did the van shelter there. They wanted easy access there, more so than the bathroom. But that's the easiest.
My initial
sidewalk
thought,
route.
sorry.
Actually 2 van accessible.
Yeah,
Actually 2 spots, right?
The van accessible space, if you
Right,
would,
that just
would be
takes-
between
takes
the
up-
spaces.
Takes up one of the spaces, so it's really only 2 spots on bookends on the both end. And the north side's gonna be the van accessible, right?
That's the plan right now, yes. That could be reversed, as I think you were referring to, but
Not gonna have 3 handicap spots, we're gonna have 2 handicap spots and accessible.
I thought we were having 2 in the north and 1 additional on the south.
That was
Maybe
my
I
understanding from
misunderstood that.
attendance at the meeting.
The way it's written.
Yeah, it was 2 on the north end, 1 on the south, with one of them being van accessible. So you're going to end up with 3. One is just going to be wider than the other 2. That's all.
As far as if folks are using those handicap spaces, not to complicate things, but I just wanted to point out, you really can't enforce a time restriction on handicap spaces. So a handicapped individual with a properly identified vehicle could park there and enjoy an entire special event or an extended lunch, whatever they're doing. But the proposed limit effectively applies to the other spaces.
Anybody else? I personally would have to somewhat agree with Bonnie, not taking away from the handicapped people, but that is 30% parking for handicapped people only in that stretch, when we are taking away quite a bit of parking that was already in front of the community house. Also the 2-hour parking, is there a way to configure that during certain hours, during certain times of the day? I mean, Cool City Brewing is going to be busy at some point too. And if somebody's parking there and it becomes delayed, are we really going to sit there and start writing parking tickets? I mean, especially at first, there's going to be times where, and we hope they're busy, that people may be there longer than 2 hours. And are we expecting them to go out and move their vehicle? I think the 2 hours may be a little too much, or a little too much. Yes.
Well, right now, there's a 2-hour limit on Washington Street. So this is just adding one small portion to what is already being done. So it's not like we're adding a new task for our,
Right. but
protective services.
We didn't really have it on this particular street. And if we also end up putting birthday parties and such in Central Park, which I know was somewhat of the talk, especially with the building in the middle there, if there's a birthday party and they have it rented out for 2 hours and they come a little bit before and they're decorating, I'm just wondering how much could be a conflict versus what we're actually trying to accomplish and help out. Because I see what you're probably trying to do is to make sure everybody has access to the park and getting people in and probably out. But is that gonna kind of work against some of the other things like staying at Cool City Brewing or having birthday parties in Central Park? It may have a negative impact to a certain point, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And I want to make sure that we don't do that. Jim?
I believe, and I don't have it in front of me, obviously, but the 2-hour parking restriction was within certain hours.
Okay,
And
it didn't say, it just says request to enforce. So it doesn't say, and that's why I asked if it was during certain hours or certain days, what those hours and days are. I didn't see it on here, so I'm asking because I would have some concern, or even if it's a concert in the park. The concert in the parks aren't always, an hour and a half long. They may be 2.5. And are we really telling someone that they ought to go move their car halfway through the park? Or halfway through the concert to the other side of the park because their time's up? That's what I'm trying to get at, is there's going to be multiple events. And are we really expecting these people in the middle of an event to take their car and go park it down the road somewhere?
Well, I think on something like that, like right now, if there's an event that's going to be happening over at the community house, people will park in front of the community house, unload their stuff and go downstairs. This would be the same theory. It would just be on the other side of the street. And there is an area that is on the map that shows where you can do that. You'll notice, okay, if you look at down in the right-hand corner, there's a copy of a Post-it, and then there's a circle up there. That's the southern edge of the unloading and loading area. And then right now, I see your point with long events in the park, like Brian Lee Day or Ethnic Fest, and it's going to be longer than 2 hours. But right now, with parking at a premium, there's other places in the city to park. And I know one of the things we've been talking about, if it's a really big event, is we can shuttle. And I mean, I'm not, saying that they were definitely going to do that, but it is an option. And I think people know that first come, first served. If they're there a little bit later, then they'll have to take what's available. And I think people in this community are kind of used to that.
I mean, there could be events at the community house too, and I know I host one myself. And in that event, usually it's about 3.5, 4 hours long, and it's a night event. So now someone's gonna park there, or are we gonna leave those 11 stalls just open and have nobody park there because they're worried about the 2 hours?
Well, how is it handled right now?
They can stay, there's no parking restriction time on there, on that street. So that they can park there right now on either side with no time restriction. So now we're putting a time restriction where there wasn't.
I think we want to turn, I see exactly what you're saying. I know we want to turn over the spots. That's something that we could discuss
Do we
more.
do we wanna solve that here? Or do we wanna send it back to you guys at Public Works?
On the time limit per se? Yeah.
On a couple of them, right. Maybe relook at the 30% handicap, see that that's a concern, at least among me and among Bonnie. But especially, I think I have a lot of more heartburn with the 2 hours than I do with.
I don't see why it couldn't
anything
go
else.
back to committee. And that way at least.
We have
we'll-
time.
Oh, yeah.
The park's not opening tomorrow.
Yeah, we
Right.
could bring it
Right.
back and then we'll be, probably work session would be able, well, no, we're not
Oh,
gonna
'cause you
have a
need a
meeting
meeting.
between
I think-
there.
Yeah, if your committee meets, I assume then it can come back to council. One thing, just, I was going to throw in there, and I was at first relying on memory, but I did quickly find an email, oh my goodness, from back in 08. I'm pretty certain the 1700 block of Washington does not have a time restriction.
Okay.
So that helps with regard to some of the things that were spoken to, but maybe that's better addressed with a more holistic look at the committee.
I
But
didn't know that. I thought that all of Washington Street was.
most all of it is, but I know
Okay.
we've often looked to Washington when there's major events like the health fair over at the senior center or training or other things that are filling up the lot here at City Hall, that because it doesn't serve any businesses, nobody's, running in to buy something at Schrader's or to get their hair done or something in this block. So the council actually back in 06 had lifted the time limit out here. Might be yet another reason to look at the whole shebang.
Right.
on
I
that.
mean, with events in the park itself and even Cool City Brewing, you're gonna have people that are gonna be there, I think, well over 2 hours. I do.
Okay.
And I hope that's the case because that means things are succeeding down there. And we're not forcing them to move halfway through their dinner or a concert or an event in the park.
Right. Okay, so when we bring it back to committee, we're looking at time restrictions and then 3 versus 2 handicap parking. Okay.
I think that's the consensus I got, but I know Jeff's hand was up, so I want to make sure that we nail him first.
Wouldn't it make more sense to put 2 parking spots on 18th Street then? That way we don't take anything from the park. First 2 up to the intersection. I think there's 2 spots there, right?
Talking 18 West Park and Washington.
And no, between West Park and Adams.
Yeah, that is the area that's the subject of the second request on your agenda, which is for a
Yeah, that's-
loading zone area.
You mean Washington and,
No,
oh,
in Adams. I thought,
Is that,
Yeah, that
I
goes to
think
the next
that's
one.
B, yeah.
yeah,
I thought you
they
meant
kind of got
the
lumped
end
together
here.
there a little bit.
Okay. Okay, so do we have consensus? We do have a motion on the table, so we are gonna have to either table it or send it back. So we'll have to change our motion, the mover and shaker. If that is the consensus of what we want to do is send this back to Public Works. Who made that motion? Darla and Larry.
Okay, I think that the best way to do it would just be to table it until we've had our Public Works Committee meeting, discussed it, come up with a solution and bring it back. And then we can have a resolution to this.
Larry? Okay, we will do let's do a roll call anyway, because that's what we were scheduled for.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Schimmel-Loonis,
aye.
Larry Thomas,
Aye.
Adam Huskey,
Aye.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
Jeff Delkey,
Aye.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, good discussion. Thank you guys for that, and thank you, Public Works Committee, for your work on that. Look forward to hearing the rest of it next month. Yeah, because we won't be you meet at the beginning of the month, right? So that'd be.
Yeah.
That'd be.
It'll be
May.
for the meeting on the 16th of May for back to council.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, on to B. Requested no parking, deliveries only from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Designation for parking spaces on the south side of 18th Street between West Park Street and the first driveway to the west. The recommended action is a motion to authorize such a parking restriction as requested by the developers of Cool City Brewing Company and recommended by the Public Works Committee to be effective upon the opening of Cool City Brewing Company, expected later this year at 1718 West Park Street. Background on this.
So basically, again, this is at the request of the business to be effective when it opens. When you have most any kind of business, you need an area for trucks to unload. And given, when you look at the overall area, the 18th Street frontage really makes the most sense. This is not without precedent. When Evans was in operation a couple blocks north, you might recall they had a loading zone area very similarly situated on the side street. This would affect, I think, 2 parking spaces that exist in that area. That's what yeah. So it would, they would be off limits to the public, but of course they'd also be off limits to customers of the business. And because deliveries are mostly during the business day, this is proposed as 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. Again, Public Works Committee may have comments.
Anything you want to lead into, Darla?
Well, I'll tell you, we kind of took, I can't remember what the cross street is over by the old Evans. Is it 19th or 20th? Whatever. 21st, okay. All right, I was right the first time. All right, so, and I mean, there has been a precedent that has been set, and there does need to be an area where there can be unloading for supplies for the restaurant. And it's not, I just think that it's necessary. And we gave this a lot of discussion, and we thought it was very, very fair. I don't know what else to say about it. It's going to help with success of the building or the business.
Okay, before council discusses, we do need a motion. So do I have a motion?
moved.
No, you were good. Yeah. Darla? Thank you, Larry. Now, council discussion. Bonnie?
Just have a question. I didn't see this the first time, and just when I looked at it now, so it's only from 8 till 3, Monday through Friday, correct? And then after that, you don't care that people park there? Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, I mean, I think this is probably a good move, based on the fact that you're gonna have beer deliveries, you're gonna have food deliveries, and instead of them parking in the middle of the street like they do in some places, they can kind of get off to the side and park up next to the curb and continue the flow of traffic into our downtown from Adams Street. And again, it only impacts during business hours and Monday through Friday. I don't think it's gonna be a big deal for us not to park on those 2 spots that are adjacent to the building and probably used to be bank spots anyway, for the most part, from people driving up to use the ATM and so on and so forth. Because if I'm correct, their ATM was on that side of the street, was it not?
It was.
It was. It wasn't a drive-through. Okay. Anybody, Jeff?
That's what I was referring to, the last
Oh,
one.
okay.
Is making it there.
Okay. Your recommendation is to make those 2 handicap and not have it?
Oh, not in this one. We're in B now.
Right.
Right. Doesn't say anything about handicaps on that one though.
No, you were asking about handicap. I didn't.
Oh, no, that was the last one.
Oh, okay.
No, this one, I was just referring to the last time with the.
Oh, that's where you were
limited
referring
parking.
to the 2 spots in the
Right.
last discussion to
Right.
put the handicap spots instead of in that currently 11 spot diagonal.
We kind of
Okay,
bundled them both together a little bit.
okay.
with the time
Which is
restrictions
something
and
for
everything.
the Public Works meeting, right?
That's not the
Right,
motion.
They
Yeah,
want to move the,
right, it's not the
Right.
motion on the table. Any other discussion? Greg, do you have something?
I was just going to say this, really, if you're amenable to designating an on-street loading zone, this is really about the only place you can put it, when it comes right down to it.
There's nowhere else.
Yeah.
All right, this is a roll call vote. Jamie?
Bonnie Shamulunas,
Aye.
Larry Thomas,
Aye.
Adam Huskey,
Aye.
Mark Bittner,
Aye.
Jeff Dalke,
Aye.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, thank you very much for that. Going on to information only, Greg.
Just a couple of reminders. Tomorrow night is the annual council reorganizational meeting. That's at 6 p.m. tomorrow night here. The agenda includes, not necessarily in this order, but I think I got the first two right, at least, the swearing in of newly elected council members and the re-elected council member. The code of conduct will be presented for signature by each council member at the beginning of a new term. The council will nominate and elect a president and vice president for the coming year. That is through a paper ballot. It's the only time council gets to use secret ballot. There will be a random drawing for seating assignments other than president and vice president, which are designated locations, and action on a resolution that identifies what the normal order of business is for regular council meetings. So I see that we have our council members elect here tonight, so they're aware of the meeting and will be in attendance. And before the meeting, Jamie and or Lisa will take care of things like issuance of the laptops or tablets and X and keys for the mailboxes here on first floor. So reorganizational meeting tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, typically not televised. Heck, we're not televised tonight. We're live streaming, but open to the public. And then the next council meeting we have planned at least would be the April work session next week, Monday, 6 o'clock here in Chambers. And that agenda will include discussion of whether work sessions should be televised henceforth, as well as hopefully the ordinance amendment on beer gardens and grandfathering that was referenced earlier. And one item of follow-up to the last regular meeting, Chief Kohlmeyer has had discussion, he and Assistant Chief Meinert, with the city attorney about some further amendments to the sex offender ordinance when it comes to definition of permanent or long-term residency. Some of the things we got into a little discussion of last meeting when the amendment was approved. There will be a recommended further amendment to the sex offender ordinance coming to council. We'll probably discuss that just for background and Q&A next Monday at the work session. Not action, just discussion.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, I have one I'd like to add. Tonight is the last meeting we have with 3 of our council members, and I would like to extend a sincere thank you to Mark Bittner, Larry Thomas, and Jay Remaker for the service you have given to the city of Two Rivers, your thoughtfulness, your hard work. It is a lot of hours that is put into being on city council. I know Mark's had several terms, Jay's had a term, and Larry has filled in for Kurt Andrews here, I think, since October. So a sincere thank you to all 3 of you, one not present, but nonetheless, a sincere thank you to all you guys for all you have done for the city of Two Rivers. So thank you very much. All right, before we go to talk about closed session, are we going to be coming back in for any discussion? Doesn't look like, or any voting related to it?
There is the opportunity, and I would be asking that the council consider action on reconvening an open session. That's item under 15 on the agenda. Closed session tonight, which I know you'll be reading and voting on shortly, pertains to a matter, a communication the city attorneys had to one of the parties that the city has a judgment against related to the Paragon foreclosure. That party has requested a release from that judgment and thought it appropriate to bring that request to the city council, with the city attorney providing appropriate background in advance of any council action. But if the council sees fit, it is set up for possible action on reconvening an open tonight.
Okay, thank you. Under 14, closed session. The city council reserves the right to enter into closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.851. Is it G? I thought it used to be E. G, 1G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved in. Tonight, we will discuss matters pertaining to legal judgment obtained by the city related to the Paragon property foreclosure. I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Jamie?
Bonnie Shimulinas,
Aye.
Larry Thomas,
Aye.
Adam Husky,
Aye.
Mark Bittner,
Aye.
Jeff Dalkey,
Aye.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc. Motion carries.
Just to note for the record, and I think it's probably the conversation that's happening between the council president and Mr. Bruce right now. 19.851E is negotiating purchase of public properties, et cetera, and or any negotiation where a closed session is appropriate. So often on economic development agreements, that's by far the most common reason council goes into closed session. 1985 parent 1, parent G, again, pertains to conferring with the attorney about current or potential litigation.
Which is just what I heard. So yes.
Yep, now
Thank
you
you. I
all
wanted to
know.
make sure I wasn't reading the wrong
No,
thing.
I just wanted to
My
make sure.
alphabet's not
Yeah,
that great.
Everybody knew that.
G's, E's, B's.
Yep, yep.
All right, so we did the right thing. So good. we're
Fully
in closed session
transparent,
now.
as they say. Yep.